If you focus for the next 10 minutes, I will show you a trick that makes your code repeat anything automatically. And we will build a logic that powers playlist, countdowns, and even automations with just small line of codes. Or just copy paste the same block of code 100 times and feel why your project feels so messy. I am Shiva Prakash and welcome to SpeakCode. I have used these loops hundreds of times in my project and figured out that these loops aren't magic. They are just three steps process. Iterate, condition and act. I will walk you through each step. So stick around. We will see how our code repeatedly speaks. Did you observe that? This is what repetition means. And now to understand loops, imagine you are listening to your favorite music and want it to keep playing. Now you just turn on the repeat mode which keeps the music under the loop. Similarly in Python, we iterate a particular task until a condition is met. Diving into loops, theoretically we have two different variants of loops. One is for loop and the other one is while loop. Additionally, we have nested loops, so we are going to discuss that too. Before moving on to code, let us have an overview of why and when should we use this for loop and while loops. Moving to for loop, we generally use this for loop when we know number of times we are going to perform a particular task in advance or when we are dealing with sequence or indices. So the thought that you need to get into mind while you are using for loop is how many times I am going to repeat these tasks. Similarly, when you think about while loop, you use this when you are not aware of how many times you are going to repeat. So this while loop completely depends upon the condition, which is going to become false at the end. So now as we understood when should we use this for loop or while loop, let us look at the syntax to write this. Moving back to for loop, we use the keyword called for and the object to iterate and a keyword in and a function range. Now let me discuss what this range function actually do. As you can see, the range function has some parameters in that 1 and 4. What this mean? We are ranging numbers from 1 to 4 excluding 4. Whenever you write a range function, you have three different parameters to be mentioned. One is the starting and the other one is the end. And the third attribute that you are going to provide is the step value. That is how many times you are going to skip a particular number while iterating, right? Now, as you understood this range, let's move back to for loop. Observe the syntax. For I in range, iterate I. Now, the value of I is going to change from 1, 2 and 3. Let's observe this in code. As you can see, the similar example of PPT, which also includes the step. Let me remove this step before introducing this. Let us have a simple example of starting value and the end value of range function. Now I am using for loop to iterate through number 1 to 10 excluding 10. As you can see, we have iterations from 1 to 9. Now let me introduce the step value. I am giving it as 2. As you can see, start, stop and then step. Now as I gave step as 2, it need to skip two values after an iteration. That gives us output as 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. And feel free to experiment with your own values. Now moving back to slide, let us observe the syntax of while loop. To iterating through 1 to 4, we generally need to initialize a variable. Here we use count as 1 and we specify the keyword while. Count is less than or equals to 3. This is the condition that need to be met. So now what are we doing? We are printing the count and incrementing the count every time until this condition meets. Let us uncover this. Initially, we have count value as 1. Condition meets as true. So it prints count equals to 1 and then count plus plus. This increments the value by 1. Then now what will be the count variable storing? Exactly. Number 2. Now 2 is less than or equals to 3 satisfies. So it prints count is 2. Then again it increments. Then count 3 is less than or equals to 3. As equals to condition means it prints the count is 3. Now observe properly. Here count incrementation gives us the value as 4. Now 4 is less than or equals to 3. Here the condition fails. So our while loop terminates here based on the condition. Now let's observe how this speaks in code. We are initializing count variable to 1 and the condition is less than or equals to 3 and incrementing the value by 1. This is the same example that we discussed. Let me run this. Count 1, 2 and 3. After 3, it got terminated while our while loop got terminated. Here you can have a small example of iterating over list items. I know that you might be saying, Shiva, what is this list? Imagine list as a container which holds multiple elements of same or different data types. Here we are going with similar data types, which is string. We have bunch of fruits inside a list. So now I like all these fruits like apple, banana and cherry. I want to iterate this using for loop. I use fruits variable in here and now this fruit as an object for single element in this list and iterate it through. Now let me run this code. Here as you can see, here you can see the output. I like apple, I like banana and I like cherry. In this way you can iterate through items. Now moving forward to nested loops. Now what do you understand by nested loops? Now loop under a loop is called nested loop. Here when we use two loops to perform particular task, observe this logic. Here I am using range of 2. That means I did not specify any start value but I gave end value as 2. That means by default range function is going to consider starting value as 0 and iterate it through 0, 1 and stops right there. That means the outer for loop is repeating 2 times for 0 and 1. Each time the outer for loop repeats, so inner for loop is going to repeat 3 times. That is 0, 1 and 2. Now, totally how many times this print statement going to be printed? Exactly. 2 into 3, that is 6. Now output should be 6 values as expected. For I equal to 0, you have j equal to 0, 1 and 2. Similarly, for I equal to 1, you have j equal to 0, 1 and 2. I hope you understood the logic behind nested loop. Now let us have a real world example. Imagine you want user to enter password until it's get correct. Like you are giving user a chance of entering password until he enters the correct password. Here I am using a variable password to store the actual password. I am storing attempts of the user in the variable attempt. Running while loop until the attempt and the password are not equal. Whenever user enters correct password, this attempt variable will be equals to the password. This condition meets false. Then while loop terminates. You can basically understand this syntax, which is taking input from the user and storing it in attempt value and checking whether the password is equals to attempt or not and granting the access. If not, we are asking user to try again. Now let me run this code. Now let me enter the password as my previous YouTube comment user. That is, be ready to grab the chance in the next tutorial. So don't forget to comment in. Let me enter this. It shows that try again. Now let me enter a wrong password again. Now it is going to run and ask me password until I enter the correct password. Now what is the correct password? Python 123. See now access is granted and the loop stopped asking the input. If you understood these concepts and the logic behind this for loop and how you basically write the syntax for loop and while loop, now you are good to go to practice challenges. And make sure that you are going to do this. I have a challenge for you. Just try testing either of the for loop using a condition which never meets and let me know the output in the comment section. Actually, I know the output. If you want to resolve that, just click on this video and meet me on the other side. Until then, This is SP signing off.